Rain hammered down on the Hindu Kush mountains, drowning out the last. Desperate radio call of a Navy SEAL team. We're dead for sure. No command answered, no rescue came, and then, out of nowhere, a calm female voice cut through the static. On my mark, move! Seconds later, a single shot ripped through the storm and dropped the ambush leader before he could fire. Who was she? A ghost from a disbanded unit the Pentagon swore never existed, or something even more dangerous? What happened that night didn't just save one team. It pulled the curtain back on a betrayal buried for years. Stick with us, because this is the untold story of how a simple woman sniper rewrote the fate of an entire SEAL platoon. And if you believe courage like this deserves to be remembered, hit subscribe to a woman right now, because the next few minutes will change the way you see war forever. Rain hammered into the valley like 1,000 fists, turning the dirt into rivers of mud and drowning out the metallic rattle of gunfire. SEAL Team Orion 6 was pinned against the base of a jagged ridge, their last position compromised, their ammo running dangerously low. The mountains of the Hindu Kush had become a cage, and the enemy was closing in from 3 sides. Rounds are nearly gone, Ethan Cross shouted, shoving a fresh magazine into his rifle with fingers numb from cold rain. We've got minutes before they overrun us. Kyle Mercer, the youngest of the team, pressed his back against a rock, eyes wide with the kind of fear only rookies carried. We're dead for sure, he whispered, voice cracking. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the team leader, pressed his radio with mud-streaked gloves. Overlord, this is Orion 6. We are black on ammo, taking heavy fire, requesting immediate support. Do you copy? Overlord, do you copy? Only static answered. He tried again, louder, more desperate. We are combat ineffective. Overlord, we're dead out here if you don't respond. The rain answered with silence. Then, cutting through the static, a voice none of them recognized slid into their headsets. Calm, precise, female. Orion 6, shift your line 30 degrees north. On my mark, break right. The SEALs froze. Hale frowned. Identify yourself. This is a restricted channel. Call sign Overwatch, the voice replied without hesitation. If you want to live, you'll move when I say move. Before Hale could demand more, a single shot cracked across the valley, louder than the storm. Through the curtain of rain, the ambush leader collapsed mid-command, his rifle falling uselessly into the mud. The gunfire faltered for a heartbeat as confusion rippled through the enemy line. Now, the voice commanded. Hale didn't think, he trusted instinct. Move. The team broke right, plunging into the shallow gully as another shot rang out. A machine gun nest that had pinned them for 15 minutes suddenly fell silent, its gunner sprawled backward with a hole in his helmet. Mercer gasped. Who the hell is she? Doesn't matter. Hale snapped, dragging him forward. Keep moving. They scrambled across slick rocks, boots slipping in the mud, hearts hammering. Another shot cracked, and another enemy dropped, each one precise, impossible, surgical. Whoever Overwatch was, she saw everything they couldn't. By the time they reached temporary cover beneath an overhang, the immediate pressure had lifted. Brooks, the medic, tore open his kit to patch Mercer's arm where a bullet had grazed him. We should have been wiped out, he muttered, shaking his head. No one's supposed to make shots like that in this rain. Hale pressed his comm. Overwatch, this is Orion 6. You just saved our lives. Where the hell are you operating from? A pause. Rain hissed across the channel. Then, you don't need to know. Focus on staying alive. They'll regroup in 3 minutes. Shift south. Use the boulder line for cover. I'll clear your path." "Wait," Cross cut in, his voice sharp. "How do we know we can trust you? For all we know, you're leading us into another kill box." Another shot echoed through the rain. A sniper positioned on a ridge to their rear pitched forward, his rifle tumbling down the slope. "Does that answer your question?" Overwatch replied. Even Cross couldn't argue. The team pushed on, each man watching the storm with new eyes. It wasn't just weather anymore. It was cover, camouflage for a ghost they couldn't see. Minutes bled into what felt like hours. Overwatch guided them step by step, her instructions delivered with clipped certainty. Every time they doubted, her rifle spoke for her. Every time the enemy tried to close the noose, she cut the rope with a single bullet. Yet with every miracle shot, questions grew heavier. Who was she? How did she know their frequency? Why risk her life for a team she'd never met? Hale carried those questions like stones in his chest, but for now, survival mattered more than answers. They halted in the shadow of a collapsed outcropping, breathless, mud-smeared, alive. Hale finally keyed his mic again. "Overwatch, whoever you are, we owe you our lives. But I need to know your intent. Are you part of JSOC, CIA, some covert detachment?" Silence stretched so long he thought she was gone. Then her voice returned, softer but edged with iron. "I'm not part of anything anymore. They buried my unit years ago, but I don't leave men to die in the dark." Brooks glanced at Hale, brows furrowed. "What the hell does that mean?" Hale shook his head slowly. He didn't know, but he felt something shift in the storm, as if ghosts were moving through the rain. The storm eased only slightly, the sheets of rain thinning into a steady curtain that turned the mountains into shifting shadows. Orion 6 crouched beneath the jagged overhang, catching their breath, their radios. Still alive with the ghostly voice that had pulled them back from the brink. "Checkpoint ridge is compromised," Overwatch warned. "Enemy drones are circling. You have 90 seconds before they reposition. Cut west. There's a dry creek bed you can follow." Hale glanced at his men. Cross's jaw was tight, skepticism written across his face. Mercer was pale, bleeding through his bandage, but he nodded anyway. Brooks adjusted his pack, ready to move. Hale keyed the mic. "Copy. Moving." They slipped into the darkness again, following her unseen eyes. Yet for every step forward, the questions multiplied. The precision of her calls, the way she seemed to know not just where the enemy was, but where they would move next. This wasn't luck. This was the mind of someone who had lived their life one shot away from silence. And somewhere behind that calm voice was a past soaked in rain and fire. Years earlier, Rowan Kane had lain in the mud of another battlefield, her scope fixed on a convoy crawling through the Balkans. Back then, she had worn the patch of Ghost Recon, a unit that didn't officially exist, trained for missions no one would ever acknowledge. Her call sign had been Whisper 7, though among her brothers she was simply Hawk. She remembered Richard Stone's voice beside her, teasing, always half a laugh in his tone, even with death in the crosshairs. She remembered Adrian Voss too, quiet, calculating, a mirror of herself. They had been family, bound not by blood but by the weight of secrets no one else could carry, until the night it all burned. An op gone wrong, a village lit in fire, friendly call signs falling silent one by one, and Stone's last look before everything turned to ash, the look of betrayal. Ghost Recon had been erased on paper the next morning, buried, forgotten. But Rowan had carried the ghosts with her every step since. Now her voice returned to the present, sharper, pulling Orion 6 back from memory. "Hale, shift right. Enemy squad on your 9. The seals obeyed without hesitation this time. A burst of fire cracked past where they had been seconds before, chewing into wet stone. Hale barked, "Contact front!" But another shot from the unseen rifle silenced the ambush before his men could return fire. Cross spat into the mud. "Now this is insane. Whoever she is, she's operating outside the grid. She shouldn't even be here." Brooks shot him a look. "She just saved your ass twice in 10 minutes. I don't care. For all we know, she's rogue. She's baiting us." "Quiet," Hale cut him off. His own doubts churned, but command was command. Whatever else, Overwatch had kept them alive. And in combat, trust was built in blood, not paperwork. They pushed onward, guided step by step. Each instruction was as precise as a scalpel: when to crouch, when to hold, when to sprint. And every time they hesitated, her rifle cracked and proved her right. At last, they slid into the shelter of the dry creek bed she had promised. The enemy patrols had been thrown into chaos by the unseen killer in the rain. For the first time in hours, Orion 6 could breathe without tasting death in the air. "Overwatch," Hale said, his voice steady but carrying an edge. "You've given us room, but I need more than your voice. Who are you? How do you know our channels?" A pause. Rain tapped against their helmets, filling the silence. Then she said, "I've been listening to SEAL comms since before half your men joined. I know the way you move, the way you think, and right now I know you're still alive because of me." Cross bristled. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're going to get," she replied, and there was steel in it now, something that brooked no argument. "Trust me or don't, but if you hesitate again, you'll die in this valley, and I don't leave men to die in the dark." The channel went quiet. For a long moment, only the rain spoke. Hale finally exhaled, rubbing mud from his eyes. He didn't like ghosts on his net. He didn't like questions without answers, but his men were alive, and that was what mattered. "All right," he said, standing. "We move when she calls it. No debate." Brooks nodded. Mercer forced a smile through the pain. Even Cross, though his scowl lingered, tightened his grip on his rifle and gave a curt nod. Above them, unseen in the storm, Rowan Kane adjusted her scope, watching the team she hadn't meant to save but couldn't abandon. In their faces, she saw echoes of the brothers she had lost. And in the distance beyond the rain, she felt the faintest pulse of a hunter's presence, a signature she thought had died years ago. The ghosts were stirring again. The creek bed carried them west, its walls rising high enough to break the worst of the wind, but not the rain. Water trickled along the stones, cold against their boots. Orion 6 moved in single file, weapons ready, nerves stretched thin. Above them, lightning flashed, turning the jagged cliffs into momentary daggers. 200 meters ahead, Rowan's voice crackled in their comms. "You'll see a cluster of shale boulders. Take cover there. Enemy patrol sweeping in from your left." Hale raised his fist, signaling the halt. Cross scanned with his optics and muttered, "She's right. 4-man squad, moving fast." "On my mark," Rowan continued, her tone steady as ever. 3, 2, 1. Her rifle barked through the storm. One patrolman spun and collapsed. The rest dove for cover, but before Orion 6 could fire, 2 more dropped. Bullets threading through rain as if the storm didn't exist. The 4th scrambled into the rocks, only to fall a heartbeat later, struck mid-sprint. Brooks exhaled low. Jesus, she's not missing. Even Cross, the skeptic, didn't argue this time. He adjusted his scope and shook his head. "I didn't even see the last guy." She called it blind. They moved quickly, slipping into the cover of the shale. The weight of survival began to shift something inside them. Suspicion remained, but it bent under the undeniable truth. She was keeping them alive. As they crouched to catch their breath, Hale keyed his mic. "Overwatch, you just saved us again. My men are starting to believe you might not be a ghost after all." "I'm not here to be believed," Rowan answered. "I'm here to finish what I started." Her words carried a gravity Hale couldn't ignore, but before he could press, Cross stiffened. He had his rifle up, scanning the ridgeline. "We're not alone," he hissed. "Someone's glassing us." The others followed his line of sight. For a flicker of a second, a flash sparked on the ridge, a glint unmistakable to trained eyes, a sniper scope. "Contact, high ridge, 10 o'clock, Cross called. Rowan's voice cut in instantly. "Move, now. They're not just after you, they're after me." The admission landed heavy. Rounds cracked against the rocks, chipping stone inches from Mercer's head. The rookie flinched hard, nearly dropping his rifle. Hale grabbed his vest and hauled him forward. "Move, Kyle! Don't freeze!" They sprinted down the gully, rain stinging their faces, while Rowan's rifle cracked again and again. She wasn't just covering them. She was dueling someone out there, someone fast, someone skilled enough to challenge her dominance of the storm. Hale's radio flared with her voice, harder now, edged with strain. "Keep low. They're not focused on you anymore. They want me. You're in their crossfire." Brooke spat rain, disbelief in his eyes. "Why the hell would they target her? They don't even know who she is." "They know," Rowan said flatly, reloading. "Trust me, they've always known." Cross glanced at Hale, reading the same thought. Whoever she was, her ghosts had teeth, and those teeth were biting into the valley tonight. A round snapped past Hale's ear, burying itself in the shale with a wet thud. He ducked instinctively, cursing. Whoever was on that ridge wasn't just shooting blind, they were hunting with intent. Rowan's shot answered, sharp and final. The sniper fire paused, silence stretching as though the storm itself was holding its breath. Then Rowan whispered, almost to herself, but the SEALs heard it. "That was no regular trigger pull. That's training, I know." Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating her position faintly in their optics, just enough to show the silhouette of a woman lying prone, scope still steady, rain cascading down her hood. For the first time, the SEALs caught a glimpse of the ghost who had saved them, and in that glimpse, they also saw the danger. Whoever was out there wasn't hunting Orion -6 anymore. They were hunting her. The storm refused to let up. Sheets of rain cascaded from the black sky, hammering stone and soil alike, reducing the world to a blur of water and muzzle flashes. Orion -6 stumbled through the gully, their boots sucking into the mud, their ears alive with the constant crackle of incoming rounds. Every ricochet sounded closer, every second heavier. Rowan's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. "Break right, 30 meters, hug the slope." Hale barked the order, and the team followed without hesitation. A round shattered the rock where they had been seconds earlier, showering them with shards. Mercer yelped, clutching his helmet, but Hale dragged him forward. Rowan fired again, the report thunderous even through the storm. Somewhere above, a scream was swallowed by the rain, but before relief could settle, a new volley slammed in from the opposite ridge. The enemy wasn't breaking, they were tightening the net. "They're moving to triangulate," Rowan warned, her breathing audible now. "They know exactly where I am." Cross growled as he fired back blindly. "She's pinned! We can't leave her up there!" "Focus on staying alive," Rowan snapped. Another shot cracked from her rifle, clipping a machine gun crew before they could set up. "If you break cover, you'll die." Move toward the ravine ahead. I'll hold them. But Hale could hear it in her voice. The strain, the edge of someone locked in a duel, not just with an enemy, but with time. Whoever was on that ridge wasn't just competent, they were matching her shot for shot, a ghost against a ghost. The SEALs pushed into the ravine, hunched against the storm. Brooks fired bursts to keep heads down, cross-scanned for targets. Mercer stumbled but refused to quit. Hale keyed his mic again. Overwatch, status. Engaged, she answered, clipped. Sniper on the high ridge. He's good, too good. He's reading my corrections. Hale's stomach tightened. He had heard of snipers like that, predators who studied every twitch, every adjustment, waiting for the moment to return fire. He looked at his team. We have to draw some of this heat off her. Negative, Rowan cut in, the command in her tone absolute. You won't last 60 seconds against this crossfire. Keep moving. They want me. Let them chase me. Why? Mercer burst out, desperation in his voice. Why would they risk all this just for you? The silence that followed was heavier than the rain. Then Rowan said quietly, because I've killed their ghosts before, and they don't forget. The channel went dead. Thunder rolled overhead. The SEALs pressed deeper into the ravine, hearts pounding. Above them, Rowan shifted position constantly, firing, moving, firing again. Each shot was a dialogue between her and the unseen hunter, a deadly conversation where one mistake meant silence forever. Lightning cracked, illuminating the ridgeline for an instant. Hale saw a shadow shift. Then Rowan's voice snarled in his ear. Down! They dropped. A round screamed past, punching into the mud where Hale's chest had been. She fired back instantly, the echo booming across the valley. This time, no scream followed, just the oppressive silence of two hunters circling in the dark. Minutes bled together in the storm. Rowan's cover fire never faltered, though the cadence of her breathing betrayed how close she was to exhaustion. The SEALs reached the mouth of a collapsed cave system and huddled in the shadows. Brooks tore off his helmet, running a hand through wet hair. She's fighting a war of her own out there. We're not the target anymore. She is. Hale stared into the rain, gripping his rifle tight. For the first time, he understood the weight behind her voice. The ghosts in her words. She wasn't just saving them, she was dragging her own demons into the storm, and whoever was hunting her wasn't finished yet. The rain came harder, hammering against steel and stone, until sound itself felt like a weapon. Orion 6 crouched inside the collapsed cave system, catching their breath, weapons trained on the narrow mouth. Hale wiped water from his eyes, scanning the ridgeline through his scope. Nothing moved, nothing but the storm. Then, a shot split the night. Clean, precise, not at them, but at the stone above their shelter. The impact sprayed shards down over their helmets. Another round struck inches left, then right, bracketing the entrance. It wasn't blind fire, it was deliberate. A pattern. Rowan's voice snapped in their ears, sharper than the thunder. Stay low, don't return fire, Cross hissed. He's walking us in. That's not suppression, that's zeroing. No, Rowan said, and for the first time there was something in her tone the SEALs hadn't heard before. Not command, recognition. That's rain split. Hale frowned. What the hell is that? She didn't answer immediately. Her rifle cracked instead, punching around across the valley. Lightning followed, illuminating the canyon for a heartbeat. Hale swore he saw two shadows shift in perfect symmetry, one firing, one spotting. Rowan's breathing was heavy in the comm. It's a tactic. Fire wide left and right to split the enemy's cover, force them into the open. Then the third round cut straight through the gap. It was ours. We created it back in Ghost Recon. Mercer blinked, pale in the dim light. You mean your old team? Yes, she said quietly, and only one of them ever perfected it. Another volley struck the rocks, left, right, then silence. The team held their breath, waiting for the third shot. Rowan fired first, cutting the sequence short. The silence that followed was deafening. Brooks whispered, "You're telling us someone out there is ex-Ghost Recon?" "I thought you said your unit was buried." "It was," Rowan answered. "They all died, all but me." But even as she said it, her voice faltered, because she knew. Deep down she had felt it the moment that first bracket hit. Only one man had ever drilled her on Rain Split until it was second nature. Adrian Voss, quiet, meticulous, a ghost of a man who measured life in windage and heartbeats. And he was supposed to be dead. Hale studied her through the storm, his suspicion hardening into something else, fear, not of her, but of what hunted her. If this Voss is alive, it means everything I lost, everything they buried, was a lie, Rowan cut in. She chambered another round, her jaw tight. And it means he's not just hunting you, he's hunting me, Cross cursed under his breath. So this whole this ambush, it wasn't about us at all. No, Hale said grimly, understanding dawning. We were bait. The comm crackled then, but it wasn't Rowan this time. A different voice slid through, distorted by rain but unmistakably human, low, cold. Still splitting storms, Kane? The seals froze. Rowan's hands clenched around her rifle. She hadn't heard that voice in years, but it slid through her bones like a knife. Adrian, she whispered. Silence answered, broken only by the hiss of rain. Then another shot cracked, closer this time, driving them deeper into the cave. Rowan's voice steadied, but her eyes betrayed the storm inside her. Move out the back. Now. He's not just here to kill me. He wants me to know it's him. The seals followed her lead, slipping into the darkness of the secondary passage. Each man carried more than gear now. They carried the weight of her ghosts. And as they moved, Hale realized the storm outside was no longer just weather. It was a battlefield between two phantoms who had once fought side by side, and only one of them intended to walk out of it alive. The passage spat them out into a narrow gorge. The rain funneled into torrents that slashed down the rock walls like silver knives. Orion 6 fanned out, rifles up, eyes scanning the cliffs. Every crack of thunder sounded like a rifle bolt. Every shadow looked like a muzzle flash. Rowan crouched at the mouth of the gorge, her rifle resting steady against the stone, her hood plastered to her face by the storm. She wasn't breathing fast anymore. Her pulse had slowed into the calm rhythm of a predator. Adrian Voss, she murmured into the comms, though she wasn't addressing her team. I buried you in Kosovo. Saw the flames take you. The reply came smooth, almost amused, carried by a hijacked frequency. And yet here I am. You never did confirm your kills as cleanly as I taught you. Hale swore under his breath. He's playing with us. He's in our net. Stay low, Rowan ordered, cutting him off. Don't answer. He wants you rattled. The seals hugged the wet stone, but Cross's knuckles whitened on his rifle. We're caught in a duel we can't even see. Rowan shifted her scope, scanning ridgelines blurred by rain. She knew Voss too well. He wouldn't rush. He'd stalk, probe, force her into exposing herself. Their fight wasn't about bullets alone. It was about patience, memory, and the cracks in each other's armor. Lightning flashed, and with it a round slammed into the gorge wall inches from Mercer's shoulder. The rookie cried out, hitting the mud. Suppressive fire! Hale barked, and the team unleashed bursts at the ridgeline. But Rowan didn't fire. She was listening, feeling the cadence, the timing, the subtle delay between the shot and its echo. "He's High East Ridge," she said coldly. 70 degrees, 300 meters, but he won't be there long. She swung her rifle, squeezed off a round. The muzzle flash illuminated the rain, a thunderclap answering it. A shadow flinched, rolled, disappeared into the storm. Voss's voice chuckled in their ears. "Still quick, but slower than you used to be." Another round cracked from the opposite ridge, forcing them lower. Brooks swore. "He's moving like a ghost. How the hell are we supposed to keep up?" "You don't," Rowan said, shifting again. "I do." For a moment, Hale thought she'd vanish into the storm and leave them, but then her voice hardened. "Stay close. If he can't kill me clean, he'll break you to get to me." As if to prove her right, a round clipped the shale beside Cross, sending a shower of sparks. Another followed, bracketing Mercer again. It wasn't random. It was rain split, adjusted for group targets. Voss was herding the seals, just as he had once taught her to herd insurgents. Rowan fired back, a shot snapping the sequence in half. "You're wasting my time, Adrian," she growled. "Come for me directly." The storm held its breath. Then his voice slid back, colder now. "I already am." Her instincts screamed. She dove sideways as a round tore through the rock where her head had been. The seals fired wildly into the storm, their tracers dying useless in the sheets of water. Hale grabbed Mercer by the vest, dragging him into deeper cover. "We're stuck in between them!" Rowan rolled into a prone position, ignoring the pain slicing through her shoulder. She pressed her cheek to the stock, eyes narrowing. She could feel him watching. She could almost see the ghost of his breath on the glass. Then she spotted it. A fraction of movement, a ripple against the storm, exactly where she would have chosen to be. She fired. The crack rolled across the gorge, followed by a curse in the comms, low and venomous. "You still sting," Voss hissed, "but you'll bleed first." Silence swallowed his words, broken only by rain hammering stone. The seals stared at Rowan, the realization settling heavy. This wasn't their fight anymore. They were pawns caught in the crossfire of two legends, one who had saved them, one who wanted her erased. And the storm was only just beginning. The gorge became a crucible of thunder and lead. Rain slammed into the rock walls in sheets so heavy it blurred vision to 10 meters. For ordinary soldiers, the storm was chaos. But for Rowan Kane and Adrian Voss, it was cover, concealment, and battlefield. The seals hugged the gorge floor, returning bursts of fire whenever muzzle flashes sparked on the ridges. But they quickly realized their rifles were only noise here. The real fight played out at a range and precision they couldn't fathom. Rowan lay prone in the mud, her body melting into the earth, her breathing slow, her trigger finger steady. Every time lightning cracked, she studied the terrain for shadows out of place. Every time thunder rolled, she listened for the half-second delay of a suppressed shot. Across the comms, Voss's voice cut in again, cold and precise. "Still chasing phantoms, Rowan? Or are you finally ready to accept you're one of them?" She ignored the bait, cycling her bolts smoothly. "You always talk too much, Adrian." Her rifle barked. Stone dust erupted from the eastern ridge. A figure rolled away, disappearing into the storm, only to reappear seconds later on the western slope. He was moving fast, too fast, using the storm's curtain to mask every shift. Ethan Cross cursed. "He's everywhere at once." "No," Rowan corrected, her tone icy calm. "He's exactly where I'd be. That's how I know where to aim." She pivoted, squeezed again. This time the crack of her shot overlapped the muted cough of his. Two rounds passed each other in mid-air. unseen, unheard, destined never to meet but locked in the same lethal dialogue. The impact shattered stone near Hale's position, spraying shrapnel across his vest. He swore, dragging Mercer lower. "We can't stay in the middle like this." Rowan fired again, the recoil biting her shoulder. Her round clipped a rifle scope on the ridge, sparks flashing. Voss's chuckle hissed through the net. "Close. You've slowed, Kane. You used to be sharper." "Sharp enough to know you're bleeding," she shot back. Another silence followed, broken only by rain hammering stone. Then the storm lit with simultaneous fire. Voss opened up with blistering precision, his rounds bracketing Rowan's cover, forcing her into the mud. She answered each one with a counter shot, her rhythm flawless. To the SEALs it was insanity, two phantoms trading death at ranges and through weather no sane man would attempt. Brooks whispered, awestruck despite himself. "It's like watching gods at war." The duel reached its peak when both fired within the same heartbeat. Rowan's shot struck the ridge wall, inches from Voss's head. His round punched into the rock just behind her, spraying shards that cut across her cheek. She didn't flinch. She chambered another round, her eyes narrowing. Mercer, trembling, asked the question that weighed on all of them. "Who is he to you?" Rowan's answer was quiet, almost drowned by rain. "He was my brother." Until he chose the shadows. The words hung heavier than the storm. Another shot cracked, this one dangerously close. Hale's instincts screamed, "We need to move. He's using us as anchors." Rowan shook her head, voice sharp. "No, he's using me." "You're just caught in the middle. And if I don't end this, none of you walk out." Her rifle steadied once more, her cheek pressed to the stock, her breath sinking with the rain. Somewhere out there, Adrian Voss mirrored her. Two predators, one storm, one valley, no room for both. For a heartbeat, the SEALs held their breath. Then Rowan whispered, "Time to cut the ghost." Her shot tore into the storm, swallowed by thunder. Across the ridge a muffled cry echoed, proof she'd drawn blood. But even wounded, Voss's voice crawled back into their ears, ragged yet defiant. "Not enough. Not yet." And then he was gone, melted into the rain, leaving the valley trembling with silence. The SEALs looked at Rowan, seeing not just their savior but a ghost locked in a war only she could finish. The rain eased near dawn, thinning into a cold drizzle that painted the Hindu Kush in shades of grey. Orion 6 stumbled from the gorge into open ground, exhausted, faces cut and bruised, but alive. The storm had passed, yet the silence that followed was heavier than the gunfire. Rowan Kane moved at the rear, her rifle slung across her back, her eyes scanning every ridge as if the storm itself might rise again to spit bullets. Her cheek still bled from shrapnel, but her focus never wavered. Adrian Voss was out there, wounded but not dead. She could feel it like a second heartbeat in her chest. The SEALs collapsed under a cluster of pines, their gear soaked, their nerves shredded. Brooks checked Mercer's bandage, muttering curses under his breath. Cross sat with his rifle across his knees, eyes flicking constantly toward the ridgelines. Even Hale, steady as granite, couldn't hide the tension etched across his jaw. They had all seen it, the duel between ghosts, and they knew it wasn't finished. "Extraction points 3 clicks west," Hale said, voice rough. "We move in 30. Overwatch, you're coming with us. Command will want answers." Rowan didn't look at him. "Command buried me years ago. They won't want answers. They'll want silence." Cross finally snapped. "Then why the hell are you even here? Who is he to you?" Rowan met his eyes. For once, the iron in her voice gave way to something colder, heavier. "Adrian Voss, Ghost Recon, my brother in arms, and the one who burned us all." Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of rain dripping from branches. The seals didn't push further. They had already glimpsed enough to understand this wasn't just a mission. It was a vendetta carved from betrayal. Hale rose, scanning the tree line. Whatever his history, he'll come back. We need to move before he regroups. But as they readied their gear, Brooks froze. "Lieutenant, you'll want to see this." Pinned into the bark of a nearby tree was a single bullet, gleaming despite the rain. Not fired, not spent. Etched into its brass casing was a symbol, a hawk, wings spread, the mark once carried by Rowan's Ghost Recon team. Rowan stepped closer, her breath catching. She knew that symbol. Every member of Ghost Recon had etched it into their kit as a silent vow. But only two people had carved it into bullets, herself and Adrian Voss. The SEALs stared, realization dawning. This wasn't a stray round. It was a message. Rowan reached out, pulled the bullet free. Cold metal pressed into her palm like a brand. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "He wants me to know. He wants me to follow." Mercer's face paled. "That means he let us live." "No," Rowan corrected, her eyes locked on the bullet. "It means he let me live. You were just the bait." Thunder rumbled far off, though the sky was breaking toward daylight. Hale's voice was low, heavy. "Then this isn't over." Rowan slid the bullet into her vest pocket, her jaw set. It never was. The team moved out, their boots crunching wet gravel, their breaths misting in the cold. Extraction waited ahead, but safety felt like an illusion. Each man carried the weight of the storm, the memory of watching two phantoms carve death out of rain. Rowan walked behind them, eyes always on the horizon. The compass of her life, once shattered by betrayal, had just been reset by a single bullet. Adrian Voss was alive, and he had marked her as his quarry. The storm had ended, but the war between ghosts had only begun. The helicopter came low over the valley at first light, its rotors chopping through the thinning mist. Orion 6 trudged onto the rocky extraction zone, soaked, bruised, and bone-weary. They moved like men walking out of their own graves, each step heavier than the last. Brooks hauled Mercer into the cabin, his young face pale but alive. Cross slumped against the bulkhead, his rifle across his lap, still scanning the ridges even as the bird lifted. Hale remained on the ground a moment longer, his eyes on Rowan Kane. She stood apart, hood still drawn, the bullet with the hawk emblem turning slowly in her fingers. She hadn't spoken since they found it. The lines of exhaustion cut deep across her face, but her eyes were sharper than ever, fixed on something far beyond the rising sun. "Overwatch!" Hale called, his voice low against the roar of the rotors. "You coming with us?" She lifted her gaze, met his eyes. For the first time he saw the storm that lived inside her, the ghosts, the betrayal, the fire that had carried her through the night. "No," she said simply. Hale frowned. "You saved us. Command will want answers, and you'll need protection. Whatever this fight is, you don't have to carry it alone." Rowan shook her head. "This isn't your war. Voss made it mine a long time ago. If I go with you, they'll bury me again, and him with me, and then no one will stop what he's building." The SEALs watched from the cabin, silent. Even Cross, still distrustful, couldn't argue. They had seen enough to know she wasn't exaggerating. Adrian Voss wasn't just an enemy sniper. He was something larger, darker, moving pieces on a board no one else could see. Rowan stepped back from the helicopter, the rain mist curling around her like smoke. She gave Hale the faintest nod. "You keep your men alive. I'll hunt the ghost." Hale hesitated, then returned the nod. "If you need us, If you ever call, we'll come." The rotors roared louder as the helicopter lifted, the seals staring through. The open door as Rowan's figure grew smaller against the jagged mountains. She didn't wave. She didn't move. She just stood, a lone sentinel in the aftermath of a storm. By the time the bird disappeared into the horizon, she was already gone, swallowed into the ridgelines. The only trace she left behind was the echo of her rifle in their memories and the unshakable knowledge that the woman who saved them was stepping deeper into a war of shadows. Rowan Kane pressed forward into the mountains, her path unmarked, her compass set by a single bullet etched with the wings of a hawk. She had once been part of a unit erased from history. Now she was all that remained, and all that stood against the brother she had lost to the dark. The rain faded, the storm broken, but for Rowan, the hunt had only begun. Rowan disappeared into the mountains, the storm behind her fading, but the hunt ahead only just beginning. She carried with her not just a rifle, but the weight of betrayal, the promise of vengeance, and the unshakable truth that one woman's resolve can change the course of battles no one else will ever see. And that is the story of how a simple woman sniper turned a SEAL team's last words, "We're dead for sure," into a survival no one believed possible. Thank you for staying with us through this journey. If you believe stories like Rowan Kane's deserve to be told and remembered, make sure to subscribe to A Simple Woman's Stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What moment of her fight struck you the most? And what would you have done in her place? Share your perspective in the comments below. We read every single one. Don't go anywhere. On the screen right now, you'll find more incredible stories waiting for you. Click and keep watching, because every simple woman has a story that will change the way you see courage forever.